The Escorial monastery stood in solemn defiance of the Castilian sky in the year 1614. Within its stark stone walls, 13-year-old Infanta Anna of Austria studied a portrait of her future husband, Louis XIII of France. Her ladies-in-waiting watched in respectful silence as the young princess absorbed every detail of the face before her. A boy of just 14, rendered with regal posture yet a shadow of youthful trepidation in his eyes. "Do you believe you will be kind to me, Donna?" Anna inquired of her head lady-in-waiting, her gaze never leaving the canvas. "Your Highness possesses every virtue necessary to win the heart of the French king," the woman replied with practiced diplomacy, a subtle veil over the uncertainties they both understood. Anna knew her duty well. She was an archduchess of the mighty house of Habsburg, and the weight of her lineage settled upon her shoulders like a cloak of state. Her father, King Philip III of Spain, had been unequivocal. This marriage was to be the seal upon the peace between Europe's two greatest Catholic powers. Anna's personal feelings were a matter of no consequence in the grand design of statecraft. At that moment, her confessor, Fray Diego de Guzman, entered her chamber, his expression grave. "His Majesty requests your presence in the Hall of Ambassadors. Your Highness, the French envoys have come to finalize the marriage contract." Anna rose, summoning the grace and dignity instilled in her from infancy. Her features were delicate, yet marked unmistakably by the prominent Habsburg jaw, a pronounced lower chin, the hereditary signature of centuries of dynastic intermarriage. She schooled her face into the serene mask her station demanded. "Do not forget, Your Highness," Fray Diego murmured as they proceeded through the chill corridors. "This union binds not merely two souls, but two kingdoms. Your foremost duty shall be to secure the future of the French crown with heirs." Anna nodded, the instruction a familiar refrain. She had witnessed her own mother, Margaret of Austria, fulfill that same sacred duty, bearing 8 children, the last of whom had claimed her life. Both her parents had been Habsburgs, first cousins bound by blood, as was the family's custom. Their mission was singular: preserve the dynasty and fortified alliances, whatever the cost. Within the Grand Hall of Ambassadors, the French delegation, led by the Duc de Maine, awaited her arrival. As Anna entered, all eyes turned and heads bowed in solemn reverence. Despite her youth, she carried the unmistakable gravitas of her imperial blood. "Behold the future glory of France," declared the Duke with courtly flourish. "The sacred bond that shall unite our two great nations." King Philip observed with visible pride. The agreement was a diplomatic triumph, a dowry of 500,000 gold escudos, and, crucially, a formal renunciation from Anna of any future claim to the Spanish throne. Spain was ensuring its crown would never pass into French hands. That evening, in a moment of privacy with her brother, Philip, heir to the Spanish throne, Anna confessed her fears. "They say the young king is melancholic and withdrawn. What if he find me wanting?" Philip, barely a year her junior, took her hands gently. "You carry the blood of Charles V and Isabella the Catholic. No king could ever ask for a worthier queen. Neither dared to voice the deeper shadow Anna would carry into her marriage, the genetic legacy of a dynasty weakened by generations of inbreeding, a legacy that had already extinguished several branches of their own house, and which might yet imperil her own children. October 18th, 1615. The river Bidasoa. On the banks of the river that marked the frontier between Spain and France, the Spanish royal caravan made its halt. Anna's retinue was immense. Her brother Philip, noble attendants, ladies, over 2,000 souls in total. Upon the opposite shore, an equally grand French contingent waited. Spanning the water, a temporary pavilion had been erected. It was here that Anna would cross into France, as Princess Elizabeth de Bourbon, Louis XI's sister, stepped into Spain, a double marriage to cement the alliance. As they approached the structure, the Duke of Uceda, Anna's escort, leaned close. "Remember, Your Highness, once you cross this threshold, you become French. Your loyalty must henceforth belong to your husband and to France." Anna nodded, a silent knot tightening in her throat. She had been fashioned for this very moment, to leave her homeland behind and embrace another, her distinct jawline artfully softened by intricate coiffures and veils. She stepped forward with imperial composure. At the center of the pavilion, the two princesses passed one another. The French princess, a year younger, wore a mirror of Anna's own apprehension, yet she too stood tall in her duty. "May God be with you in Spain, princess," Anna offered in carefully rehearsed French. "And with you in France, your highness," Elizabeth replied in softly accented Spanish. No further words were exchanged. Each turned toward her destiny. On the French shore, Anna was received by the Duc de Guise, who would escort her to Bordeaux for the official wedding. As the journey commenced, the Duchesse de Nevers, now Anna's principal lady-in-waiting, spoke with a candor reserved for the realities ahead. "The king is a pious and withdrawn young man, your majesty," the duchess confided, raised under the stern hand of Cardinal d'Ossat. "His character has been deeply shaped by religious rigor." Anna responded with the polished grace of her station. "Then we share devotion to our faith." But the duchess had not finished. Leaning closer, her voice dropped to a murmur meant for the queen's ears alone. "You should also be aware, Queen Mother Marie de Medici still commands the court's deepest currents and the king's obedience. Her favorite, Concini, governs almost in his name." Anna had been warned. The French court was a serpentine maze. Her father's counsel echoed in her mind. She must learn to observe, to listen, and to speak only when her footing was absolute. November 21st, 1615, Bordeaux Cathedral. Anna finally beheld her husband. Louis XIII, slender and solemn, awaited her at the altar. His dark eyes assessed her with quiet intensity as she processed down the aisle. Anna noted a contrast. Unlike her, he bore no mark of the Habsburg jaw, yet there was a delicacy to his features, a fragility reflecting his own Bourbon lineage. Less entangled by inbreeding, perhaps, but bearing its own weight of dynastic expectation. When asked if he accepted Anna as his wife, the young king's reply was clear. "Je le veux." It was formal, detached. When her turn came, Anna answered in her carefully measured French. Every noble in the cathedral was listening to her accent, weighing her bearing, judging whether the Spanish infanta was worthy of the French crown. That night, after the feast, Anna was escorted to the royal bedchamber. Her ladies attended her in silence, following tradition, and departed, leaving her alone to await her husband. Louis entered, visibly ill at ease. "I trust the journey was not overly taxing, madam," he offered, awkwardly breaching the quiet. "Your realm is beautiful, sire. I am honored to be your queen," Anna replied, cloaking her nerves behind rehearsed courtesy. Louis gave a stiff nod and approached slowly. Anna understood what was required of her. To produce an heir, a child who would carry the hopes of France alongside the centuries-old burden of Habsburg blood. By 1616, the Louvre Palace in Paris had become a hive of whispers and rival factions. At just 15 years old in d'Autriche, Queen of France was learning to navigate its treacherous currents. True power did not rest with the king. Not yet. Her mother-in-law, Queen Marie de Medici, still ruled from the shadows, and young Louis XIII, barely a year and a senior, remained firmly within her grasp. "The Queen Mother will never permit you to gain influence over the king," warned the Duchesse de Montrini, one of Anna's instructors in French etiquette. "Concini and Her Majesty command every corridor of court life." Anna nodded in silent understanding. She had already discovered how closely her letters to Spain were scrutinized. To speak too freely, even to her own family, was perilous. Thus, she began to write in veiled phrases, messages decipherable only to her father and brother. In one such letter, she confessed her growing despair. "The king visits my apartments infrequently," she encoded, "and when he does, our discourses of music or falconry. I fear I am failing in my duty to secure the succession." What Anna did not commit to paper was a more intimate truth. Louis seemed profoundly uneasy in her presence, as if the very notion of physical closeness was a transgression. Raised under the austere morality of Cardinal d'Ossat, the king approached conjugal relations as a sin to be endured. Palace whispers hinted he might be incapable of consummating the marriage, though none dared voice it aloud. Then, one spring afternoon, an unexpected shift. While Anna and the few Spanish ladies she had been permitted to retain were taking the air, the Duc de Lens, the royal falconer and the king's closest confidant, arrived with tidings. "Your Majesty," he said with a deep bow, "His Majesty invites you to accompany him on a hunt tomorrow in the woods of Saint-Germain." Anna was astonished. It was the first personal invitation she had received from Louis in months. "Please inform His Majesty that it will be my honor," she replied with composed dignity, though her heart quickened. Once the Duke had withdrawn, her loyal maid, Donna Stefania, whispered with concern, "Be cautious, Majesty. This may be a snare laid by the Queen Mother." Anna had considered that, too. Rumors already swirled that Marie de' Medici sought to annul the marriage, claiming it unconsummated. There was talk of finding Louis a Florentine bride of her own choosing. Or, Anna said quietly, "It may be our chance. The king is beginning to resist her control, and Louis encourages it." At the hunt, Anna astonished the courtiers with her prowess on horseback. Trained in the rugged terrain of Castile, she rode with fearless elegance, drawing admiring glances. "You ride like a true Frenchwoman, madam," Louis remarked, a note of genuine admiration in his voice. Anna allowed herself a modest smile. That single, reserved compliment represented the greatest progress she had made with him since their wedding. "I wish to honor my new homeland in all I do, sire," she replied. That night, for the first time, Louis remained in Anna's chambers longer than mere formality dictated. Though he remained ill at ease, Anna did her utmost to bridge the distance. She softened her tone, spoke with gentle warmth, allowed genuine feeling to edge out rigid protocol. Slowly, the barrier between them seemed to thin. But just as a fragile hope stirred, a violent tremor shook the court. Under the guidance of Louis ordered the arrest and assassination of Concini, the Italian favorite of the Queen Mother. It was a brutal, decisive stroke of political regicide. Marie de' Medici was exiled to Blois, and Louis XIII at last declared he would rule alone. This seismic shift placed Anna in a new and precarious light. With her mother-in-law's shadow removed, the Queen's position suddenly held more significance. Yet with this elevation came crushing pressure and relentless scrutiny. The court's singular demand echoed in every corridor. An heir. Time was slipping away. Physicians prescribed a bewildering array of tonics, elixirs, and treatments meant to stimulate fertility in both the Queen and the King. But Anna understood what no one dared articulate. Her prominent Habsburg jaw was but the visible crest of a deeper genetic inheritance, the legacy of generations of strategic, incestuous unions designed to preserve dynasties, often at the expense of vitality and vigor. In the solitude of her private chapel, Anna knelt before the altar. Her prayers grew more desperate with each passing month. "Grant me a healthy son," she pleaded to St. Joseph, "protector of families. I swear to raise him as the most Christian of kings." But season followed barren season. Every moon cycle, without news of a pregnancy, added to the unbearable weight upon her shoulders. Whispers metastasized into open judgment. She had failed. She was the barren queen. Then came the cruelest of comparisons. Her sister-in-law, Elizabeth de Bourbon, now wife to Anna's own brother, Philip, had already given birth to a daughter. The Spanish court celebrated new life, while the French court simmered with anxiety and blame. "They say the queen is cursed," nobles murmur behind gloved hands, "that the Habsburg blood is spent and sterile." Then, in 1624, a new axis of power entered the French court. Jean du Plessis, better known as Cardinal Richelieu, appointed as Louis's first minister, he swiftly became the true architect of France. Brilliant, icy, and relentless, Richelieu was determined to centralize all power in the crown and crush the influence of the fractious nobility. To Anna, the cardinal was more than an obstacle. He was a mortal threat. From the outset, he viewed her not as a queen, but as a potential conduit for Spanish espionage. With tensions escalating between France and Spain over territories in the Netherlands and Italy, Richelieu's suspicion of Anna hardened into policy. He has ordered all your correspondence intercepted and deciphered, warned Madame de Chevreuse, Anna's sole trusted French ally. He has even placed one of his own creatures among your ladies-in-waiting. Anna kept her countenance placid, but inside, a cold fury simmered. After all these years, she was still seen as a foreigner, the perpetual suspect. "What is the king's mind in this?" she inquired. Madame de Chevreuse hesitated. "His Majesty places his complete trust in the cardinal. He fears your loyalty may yet lie with your brother in Madrid, not with France." Anna said nothing, but the wound cut deep. Her marriage to Louis XIII had not thawed. He remained distant, almost spectral. Their rare moments of intimacy were mechanical, performed from duty, not desire. Some whisper the king finds solace in the company of certain young gentlemen of the court. The Marquise de Senecey ventured one day. Anna silenced her with a glacial stare. Whatever her husband's private inclinations, she would not allow gossip to further erode the dignity of the crown. Then came war. France and Spain, brother against brother, wife against husband. Richelieu moved with swift, surgical precision. He slashed Anna's allowance, dismissed most of her remaining Spanish attendants, and permitted her to retain only 2 ladies and her confessor. "It is for your own protection, your Majesty," the cardinal stated with feigned courtesy. "The people might question your loyalties were they to see you surrounded by Spaniards while our armies fight your homeland." Anna met his gaze without faltering. Few dared to look Richelieu so directly. "My loyalty is to France," she said, her voice cool and precise, "and to my husband, the king. But I will not be treated as a prisoner within my own palace." The cardinal offered a thin, humorless smile. "No one imprisons you, madam. We merely guard you from your own impulses." But in 1626, Richelieu made his boldest move yet. He formally accused Anna of maintaining a clandestine correspondence with the Spanish court. His agents ransacked her apartments and produced ciphered letters, carefully hidden away. Louis XIII was incensed. He summoned Anna to his private cabinet, an audience he almost never granted. "How do you explain this?" he demanded, casting the letters upon the table. "Are you betraying France by conspiring with our enemies?" Anna stood firm. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her voice held steady. "Those letters were written before the war began, sire. They speak of family, not of politics. I swear upon my faith and my soul, I have never betrayed France." The king stared at her, a tumult of doubt and illness in his eyes. He was 25 now, pale and gaunt, visibly diminished by the intestinal affliction, likely tuberculosis, that would one day claim his life. Across from him, Anna remained poised, her face still youthful, her spirit unbroken. "The cardinal argues our marriage should be annulled," Louis at last, his voice hollow. "He cites your sterility and your Spanish sympathies as justification." Anna's breath caught. The threat she had dreaded for years was now laid bare. "And what do you believe, your Majesty?" she asked softly. Louis sighed, the sound weary. "I believe God joined us, and only he may separate us. But I cannot trust you if your heart remains in Spain." Without a word, Anna knelt before him, an unthinkable gesture for a Habsburg archduchess. But she had no other recourse. "My heart has belonged to France since the day I crossed the Bidassoa, sire. I swear it on the salvation of my soul." The immediate crisis was averted, but Anna understood her place in France would never be secure until she gave the kingdom an heir. The summer of 1628 brought the greatest test of Anna's life. France was still at war with Spain. The king and Richelieu were encamped at the siege of La Rochelle, the last Protestant stronghold. Back in Paris, Anna, now 36 and still childless, served as regent in Louis's absence. And then she made a mistake. A dangerous, reckless, unthinkable mistake. She began a correspondence with George Villiers, the Duke of Buckingham, the dazzling favorite of England's King Charles I. Buckingham had visited the French court years earlier and had shown an admiration for Anna that bordered on scandalous. Now, through secret messengers, they exchanged letters filled with charm, longing, and the kind of extravagant flattery no queen should accept it from a foreign noble. "You are playing with fire, Your Majesty," warned Madame de Chevreuse, who facilitated the deliveries. "They are only words," Anna insisted, "expressions of friendship." But she knew better. Even if the letters held no political substance, their tone alone could destroy her, and destroy her they nearly did. One of her couriers was intercepted. Richelieu read the letters. He had what he needed. The king's return to Paris was announced with only 3 days' notice. Anna panicked. She tried to burn the remaining letters, but it was too late. That evening, the Chancellor of France, Pierre Seguier, a cold man and Richelieu's loyal enforcer, arrived at her chambers. "His Majesty has ordered an investigation," he declared. "We must search your apartments." Anna did not flinch. "Search them. I have nothing to hide." For 4 hours, guards turned her rooms upside down. Then, behind a panel in her private oratory, they found it, a small locked box containing the letters from Buckingham. "This is most grave," Seguier said grimly. "The king must be informed." That night, in a rare and violent breach of protocol, Louis stormed into her room. His face, usually impassive, was twisted with fury. "Treason! Adultery!" he shouted, hurling the letters at her feet. "You conspire with our enemies and dishonor me with your shameless flirtations." Anna sank to the floor, gathering the scattered pages with trembling hands. "There is no treason, no adultery, only harmless word with a foreign noble who once visited this court under your own permission." Louis snatched one letter and read aloud, his voice dripping with scorn. Asterisk. "Your memory lives in my heart as the sweetest of comforts in my solitude." Asterisk, you call this harmless. Anna lowered her head. In France, a queen was not merely a wife. She was the sacred vessel of the dynasty's future. Even the hint of emotional infidelity was a threat to the realm. "The cardinal advises I repudiate you," Louis said coldly. "Send you to a convent. Your barrenness justifies it. And now this scandal." Anna swallowed hard. "If that is your will, sire." "It is not," he interrupted sharply. "My will is for France to have an heir. A true heir. My heir, not one born of Spanish or English whispers." The cruelty of his words cut to the bone. "I have never broken my vows," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I swear it before God." Louis studied her, his expression inscrutable. Finally he spoke. "You are to remain confined to your rooms. All your correspondence will be screened. Your French attendants will be replaced with ones loyal to the cardinal." It was not banishment, but it was captivity, under heavy surveillance. Anna became a prisoner in her own palace. She wept that night, not for the punishment, but for the profound humiliation. 13 years of sterile marriage, and now her honor hung by a thread. And yet, this very scandal brought an unexpected twist of fate. For the first time in years, Louis began to pay attention to his wife. Even if from a place of suspicion and anger, he noticed her again. Then, in May of 1637, Anna made an announcement that shook the kingdom to its foundations. She was with child. After 22 years of marriage, Anna of Austria, once believed barren, was carrying a child. At first, the court was rife with skepticism. False hopes had surfaced before. But as her belly swelled and the months advanced, a fragile, disbelieving hope began to spread through the palace. "It is a miracle," Anna whispered to her ladies, her hands resting upon her rounded womb. "A gift from Saint Joseph. I swore that if I were granted a child, I would build a convent in his honor." As the tale spread, the court clung to a romantic legend that during a stormy night, Louis had been compelled to seek shelter in Anna's chambers. That night, it was whispered destiny intervened. Richelieu, now unable to disregard her, ordered a double guard for the queen. The safety of the heir is now the highest priority, declared the captain of the musketeers, a bold young man named D'Artagnan. Anna smiled faintly. Tell His Eminence I appreciate his sudden concern for my well-being. But in private, she was gripped by dread. She knew the risks. She was a Habsburg. Her family tree was a dense, gnarled tapestry of intermarriage. She had seen the consequences. Her uncle, Rudolph, too, consumed by madness. Her cousin, Ferdinand, too, with a jaw so pronounced he could barely eat. Anna prayed without ceasing. When the baby stirred, she feared malformation. When it lay still, she feared it had perished. Even Louis XIII, typically remote, began visiting more often. He showed no tenderness, but he inquired. The astrologers predict a son. He remarked during one visit, "They foretell a glorious reign." "Boy or girl, sire?" Anna replied, "They will be born of Bourbon and Habsburg blood, a child of two great houses." On September 5, 1638, after a grueling and painful labor, Anna of Austria delivered a healthy baby boy. France at last had a dauphin. Louis XIII entered the chamber moments after the newborn's cries pierced the air. For an instant, genuine emotion flickered across his pale, solemn face. "God has blessed France," he whispered. He took the infant into his arms and studied the tiny features intently, searching, perhaps, for the shadow of the Habsburg jaw, for weakness, for failure. At last, he gave a stiff nod. "He is perfect. He shall be named Louis Diodon, Louis the God-given." Anna, exhausted yet radiant, finally cradled her son. "Mi pequeño milagro," she murmured in Spanish. "May God shield you from the burden of your blood, and grant you the strength to bear the crown." She could not yet know this child, Louis XIV, would become the most formidable monarch in French history. 2 years later, at the age of 39, Anna gave birth again, this time to another boy, Philippe Duc d'Orléans. Against all odds, after 2 decades of barrenness, she had given France not one heir, but 2. The court whispered divine intervention. Even Richelieu could not conceal his astonishment. Philippe, unlike his elder brother, bore more pronounced Habsburg traits, a subtle but discernible protrusion of the jaw, a more delicate constitution. Anna saw it. She loved him no less, but she understood its meaning. Louis, however, appeared robust, vigorous, a miracle, yes, but also a living weapon, a testament that she, Anna of Austria, had fulfilled her sacred duty. Now she was no longer merely the queen. She was the mother of the future. Her enemies were forced to bow. Even Richelieu, now dying, could no longer undermine her position. The once doubted foreign princess, the object of scorn and suspicion, had become the most powerful woman in France. And as she watched her sons at play beneath the vaulted arches of Saint-Germain, she knew her blood, her burdens, and her battles had not been in vain.